It began like any other morning on live television: bright lights, polite applause, and a guest lineup that promised a safe, entertaining show. But what unfolded that day on The View became something no one in the audience, or even behind the cameras, could have predicted. The moment that Meghan Markle sat down across from Howard Stern, you could almost feel the air shift. What started as a conversation quickly turned into one of the most shocking on-air clashes in daytime TV history. This is Story Vault, where television's most unforgettable moments are brought back to life. That morning, Meghan entered the studio radiant, wearing a soft beige dress and a calm smile. It was meant to be a conversation about her latest humanitarian projects, her plans for a children's foundation, and a little light talk about family life. The audience applauded warmly as she greeted the hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Sarah Haynes. Then, the surprise came. Sitting on the far end of the panel was a guest co-host, Howard Stern. The crowd roared when they saw him, expecting laughter and chaos, the kind of bold humor only he could bring. Meghan looked slightly taken aback but smiled politely, unaware that this appearance would become the center of global controversy. Howard leaned back in his chair, smirked, and said with that trademark dry tone, "Well, Meghan, you've had quite the journey, from Hollywood to the palace, and now back on daytime TV. How's that working out for you?" The audience chuckled. Meghan responded gracefully, talking about growth, identity, and the importance of using her platform for good. But Howard wasn't done. He leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "Come on," he said. "Let's not pretend this is all about charity. You walked away from royalty, then went straight to Oprah, Netflix, and now you're here. Don't you think that's kind of ironic?" The room tensed. The laughter stopped. Meghan tried to hold her composure. "Howard," she said evenly, "when you've lived under that kind of microscope, you want to tell your story in your own words. That's all." Howard nodded slowly, pretending to agree, before saying, "Sure, but doesn't it feel like you've been telling it for 5 years straight? I mean, we get it, you had it rough. But now you're rich, famous, and sitting here talking about peace. Doesn't that seem a little," he paused, raised his eyebrow, "convenient?" The silence was heavy. Joy Behar tried to jump in, "Howard, let's not," but Meghan spoke before she could finish. "What's convenient," Meghan said quietly, "is that people like you profit from tearing others down." The audience gasped. Howard leaned back, almost amused. "I'm not tearing you down, Meghan. I'm just asking what everyone's thinking. If you really wanted privacy, why are you still talking?" The tension became unbearable. The camera caught Meghan's jaw tightening, her eyes welling slightly. She shifted in her seat, trying to find control. Whoopi Goldberg, sensing things were about to go too far, tried to steer the conversation away, but Howard wasn't finished. He turned to the audience. "Am I wrong?" he said. "Or does anyone else find this whole victim act exhausting?" The audience was split. Half gasped, half murmured in discomfort. Meghan took a deep breath, her voice cracking slightly. "You have no idea what I've been through," she said. "You don't get to tell me how much pain is too much." Howard replied, softer but sharper. "You're right. I don't. But maybe the world doesn't either." And that was the moment she broke. Meghan blinked, forcing back tears, then slowly reached down to unclip her microphone. The sound of the mic popping off echoed in the silence. "I'm done here," she said, her voice trembling. She stood, thanked Whoopi with a nod, and walked off the stage. The audience didn't know whether to clap, shout, or stay quiet. Howard sat back, saying nothing, his expression unreadable. The cameras cut abruptly to commercial. Behind the scenes, chaos erupted. Producers rushed toward Meghan's dressing room, trying to convince her to return for a closing segment. Howard sat alone at the table, sipping water, and when a crew member asked if he wanted to apologize, he simply said, "Why?" I didn't do anything wrong. The video of her exit leaked within minutes. By the time The View aired on the West Coast, clips had already gone viral. Headlines exploded online. Howard Stern makes Meghan Markle cry on live TV. Within hours, the internet split in two. Some praised Howard for his honesty. Others accused him of cruelty. Fans of Meghan flooded Twitter with the hashtag #WeStandWithMeghan, while critics cheered #HowardSaidItRight. The network scrambled to release a statement. ABC called the situation an unfortunate misunderstanding. But insiders knew, this wasn't an accident. The producers had brought Howard on precisely because he pushed boundaries. They wanted a moment. They got one. That night, late-night hosts and podcasters dissected every second of the exchange. Memes flooded social media, clips of Meghan's exit set to dramatic music, reaction videos, endless analysis. Meanwhile, Meghan was nowhere to be seen. Sources close to her claimed she was devastated and felt ambushed. Her friends described the encounter as emotional manipulation for ratings. A close confidant told a London paper that Meghan had been advised not to respond publicly. But the silence only made it bigger. Within 3 days, The View had its highest ratings in a decade. The episode was re-uploaded, clipped, subtitled, and replayed across every corner of the internet. Every talk show in America was suddenly debating, did Howard Stern go too far? On his radio show the next morning, Howard addressed the incident. Look, he said, laughing, I asked her questions. That's what I do. If someone cries because of honesty, that's not on me. Maybe they just didn't expect a real conversation. His co-host chuckled, saying, you sure broke the internet though. Howard replied, then maybe it needed breaking. It was classic Stern, unapologetic, confident, provocative. But while Howard was celebrating, Meghan's team was regrouping. Her PR advisors met behind closed doors in Montecito, planning how to reframe the story. They wanted empathy, not pity. Strategy, not silence. And they got it. A week later, Meghan was seen driving through Beverly Hills in a black Range Rover SV autobiography, calm but distant, ignoring reporters. She made no public comment, but sources said she was preparing for a new kind of comeback, one that didn't involve talk shows. Meanwhile, Howard arrived at his Manhattan studio in a Bentley Flying Spur, flashing a grin to photographers. When asked about Meghan, he said, she's a good actress. I'll give her that. By then, the controversy had morphed into something larger, a global debate about media ethics, celebrity fragility, and the nature of honesty in the public eye. Did Meghan deserve to be pushed that hard? Or did she enter the game knowing what she'd face? Experts weighed in on every network. Media analysts called it the interview that broke daytime decorum. Psychologists debated the emotional cost of public scrutiny. It wasn't just gossip anymore, it was cultural commentary. But beneath all the noise, there was a quieter truth. Meghan's walkout became a symbol, for some, of strength and boundaries, for others, of fragility and overreaction. It all depended on which side of the lens you looked through. And Howard Stern? He became the face of an uncomfortable question. In a world where celebrities control every word of their image, is there still room for real confrontation? In Hollywood, they say no press is bad press. And that week, both Howard and Meghan proved it true. Her name trended in 50 countries. His ratings doubled. By the end of the month, Meghan was back in California, spotted leaving a charity gala in a Rolls-Royce Ghost, escorted by her team. She looked calm, composed, perhaps even relieved. It was as if she'd accepted the storm, learned from it, and was ready to move forward. Howard, on the other hand, was seen leaving a restaurant in a Mercedes-Maybach S680, chuckling with friends. When a reporter asked if he'd invite Meghan to his show, he smiled and said, she wouldn't survive 10 minutes. The internet went wild again. And that's how a single morning episode of The View became one of the defining